Every few months, Steam hosts events known as Next Fests, focusing on new games coming next, typically with a focus on more indie projects. One of the wonderful parts of this event is that many of the games spotlighted have a demo available, meaning you can get right into the new fancy games that are shown off rather than trying to glean anything from trailers and screenshots. I truly love game demos and figured that I could take a look at some of the more interesting ones I came across simply scrolling through. I tried to grab a variety, from roguelikes to Gooner games to puzzle games. Wait, what was that last one? But I feel like there's no better place to start than the first game I played, Restory. Restory? Yeah, my method for choosing which game to play next was the complicated system of roll a d20 to pick from 15 games. It worked. Speaking of picking out of a pile of potentially unfinished projects, Restory is a game about repairing electronics that get sent to you and chatting with some of the owners and locals. Honestly, that's kind of it. You take apart the device, clean each bit meticulously, then swap out the busted parts for new ones. This can be done either by aping spare parts off of old projects or purchasing some online that have the specific replacements you need. Some people need a battery changed, think their button gets stuck all the time, or could just use a deep cleaning, but all of them are simple enough to solve. Assembly and disassembly is simply enough, and it felt like money was generous enough in the demo for it to not really be a problem, but it's one of those chill games that I can see somebody turning on, listening to a podcast, and burning through some time. Personally, I think the game would be a bit more interesting if certain things weren't just plug and play, like needing to mess with voltages for certain components, or figuring out what's wrong with the component beyond simply ripping it out and being told, yep, this one's fried. Hey, maybe somebody even wants a custom part, like a different colored LED or something. Still, I can see this game getting a lot more intriguing as you have dozens of items to work on and parts to rifle through. Something about it was compelling enough for me to stick with it for longer than I usually did for these games, but as it stands, try it yourself if it looks fun, but if it doesn't seem like your thing, it probably isn't. I was a bit more iffy on Restory, but one game I played had me on board almost from jump. Object Impermanence. I'm a huge fan of puzzle games. I love games like Void Stranger, Blueprints, and as a kid, Portal 2 co-op was even the sleepover game of choice many nights, to the point where half of that game's puzzles are burned into my brain. So as someone with a decent chunk of experience in the genre, let me tell you that this game is a good puzzler. It employs a mechanic I've pretty much only seen in horror games, where things progress or reset only whenever you're looking at them. For an example, this little guy, oh my god, they're adorable, will roll down a hill onto a button whenever you're looking at it. But if you off-screen it, it stops all of its momentum and will stay where you last saw it. If that concept alone is intriguing enough to get you into the game, then here's your sign to go play the demo yourself and see what other interesting puzzles there are. This game had challenges I've never had to think about in a game before, and tested movement that many other games haven't, which is weird for a puzzle game, but I really dig it. Due to its nature as a puzzle game, I'll refrain from saying too much as to not give away any puzzle solutions, but this game is a solid wishlist for me. It's also one of the few demos that I fully finished in this recording session, so you're not in it for the long haul one way or another. Now, not all games I played were winners, with one I wish finished much quicker. Rizz Dungeon Skeleton Key to my heart. Every time I say this game's name, it shaves off a week of my life. I'm gonna shorten it to RDSKTMH for my health. I will say, this game had some gorgeous pixel art, which, given that it's a bit of a Gooner game, you kind of need, and an interesting idea for its system. Your main character in this dungeon crawler RPG, really sucks. Any attacks she throws out are pathetic, and she's portrayed as comically oblivious to a lot of things. As a result, you recruit party members in the form of enemies patrolling the dungeon, all of whom are cute, objectively, monster girls. Unfortunately, behind the beautiful art, this game takes some of the worst aspects of the games it tries to replicate, with the core problems being in its core systems. The combat is dull, like somebody took the fight spare system from Undertale and squeezed it down to its mechanical roots. You're either fighting to lower their health bar, dealing individual points of damage and hoping your teammates do something useful, or smooching to raise their Rizz bar. God damn. Fighting ends the battle. Rizzing gives you what is effectively a 1 in 3 chance of getting the monster, while your AI-controlled party members do nothing. It's boring no matter which route you take in a fight, especially since the monsters can throw out hints that actually just screw you if you try to pick up on them. Like, I thought this chubby Lamia lady was very cute and wanted one in my party, so I ran around, past like 3 or 4 other random encounters that I had to slog through, to find one, only to pick the wrong option, then make her enraged and unable to be flirted with for the rest of the battle. The party management seems like it could be interesting, since party members will react to how you treat the others, but it just feels uncomfortable and cucky sometimes. Even the one-on-one time you can spend at in-rooms feels almost like hearing 2 Tomodachi-life characters talk about an autofill word for minutes before you get an actual scene of development. Did I just catch a shiny? whatever. Unfortunately, this is our first game to go into the blacklisted part of the scale. Thanks for clicking on the thumbnail, though. Let's talk about a better game. Entropy. Entropy is another RPG with an interesting visual aesthetic reminiscent of PS1-era 32-bit games. Characters and environments are blocky and animations are a little simple, but this game does what RDSK-TMH never could and actually has an interesting combat system. Magic is dangerous in this world, with spells just as likely to hurt their caster as they are their enemies. Still, it's worth trying to use everything you can, since things can hurt in this world, attacking specific limbs on both sides to try and earn an advantage, like in games like Fear and Hunger. I guess all games with that limb system need to have this kind of aesthetic, huh? It'd probably feel really out of place in a game with a colorful art style like RDSK-TMH. Entropy's world is super intriguing and cool to explore, even if I feel like the game itself is a little slow to start, but hey, it's an RPG that's probably dozens of hours long in its main game. If it looks like it'd be worth a shot, try it out for yourself. And now for something completely different. About fishing. This is a game that... Is that the Resident Evil 4 inventory system? Yes, that is literally the reason I downloaded this game, and will be what I base this entire review on. It seemed like such a minimally integral part of the game and what I played that I had to wonder why it was even in the game. Especially since the rest of it is walking back and forth along the beach trying to find a fish to hook up. The fishing is fun enough in its own right, but unlike more arcadey fishing systems like in Terraria or Stardew, the fish themselves are typically minutes apart and have to be brought all the way back to the box before you can even start looking for one again. And yeah, look for one. They're not exactly obvious. It felt like it had a bit more that it wanted to be, but this game really didn't, forgive me, hook me on its core concept enough to want to derail the recording session any longer by spending another 30 minutes cleaning Atari controllers. Oh god. Very tentative, see for yourself, though I'd personally put it into our final category. No thank you. Iron Nest. Iron Nest's core concept carries it so hard, since it's based entirely on operating a gigantic artillery installation and operating every individual aspect of it to completion, from ranging your shots, loading your shells, and aligning the entire spinning building on gears to the correct direction. It's all done through a few cranks and dials that you figure out yourself. Hey, I knew it had to be good because they even had Zach Hazard on their Steam page, and I've listened to that guy rant about guns and military stuff for dozens of hours now. This game gets its feeling down pat. All the noises of the weapon as it groans and whirs, sluggish speed getting across exactly how heavy and huge everything is, and to top it all off, that final blast of the weapon itself. It feels satisfying to get everything right, especially whenever you actually hit the target you were aiming for. And, not the surrounding zip codes because you accidentally used a bomb with multiple times the explosive power. However, in the mission where it asks you to do little adjustments to get your shot just right after you take one, it feels a lot worse when those little adjustments take multiple minutes of just waiting to even make a 1-degree change in angle. Once you fire this cannon once, you fired it 1,000 times and the process doesn't change much aside from aiming it, so some of that gets lost on me. Still, for succeeding on its core concept so handily, I think it's at least worth a shot if you're at all interested. How about something a little more relaxing next? Over the Hill! Or Over the Hill. The game's so chill that even its name is in all lowercase. Over the Hill makes this part of the script a lot easier by simply saying, it's a more chill SnowRunner. Rather than getting caught in 3 inches of mud and needing to desperately tow yourself onto a tree you're worried about uprooting yourself, this game lets you pretty much subvert most problems with enough speed. So long as the billion tutorials that stop all of your inputs until you close them don't completely beat you, yeah, that was frustrating. There's really not a lot to say about this game. SnowRunner has interesting missions traveling across large distances and tricky terrain, whereas Over the Hill feels more focused on exploration and getting tiny unlocks to change how your car looks. It honestly feels hard to recommend this game whenever SnowRunner exists, so that's another game for the no thank you tier. Roguefort. This is a game that I fear suffers for having a demo. It has so much goddamn text, either describing its world, its mechanics, or in random villager dialogue that doesn't matter. I also got walls of text for its tutorials, got bored of reading so much, and ran off in a random direction only to get one-shot by a wyvern. I couldn't really give this game a fair shot, so I'll be kind of just put it in the no thank you tier again. Vholume. Hey, so whoops, my recording messed up for this game, so I'll keep it brief, but it's really good. It's like a mix of Neon White's levels, speedrun systems, and Mirror's Edge's movements, since it's a parkour game. I knew I was hooked from the second I finished the tutorial and then started doing laps trying to improve my time. The other levels that aren't this tutorial one that I only have footage for, sorry, are most interesting when you try and sight read them and go with the flow rather than ones that are more perplexing and require looking around to figure out how to progress, but it's still fun. Wishlisted. Gunstoppable. Gunstoppable felt off. This game just didn't feel very good to play, with upgrades and guns not particularly interesting, and enemies that couldn't hit you while spinning in a circle on a rail. People also wouldn't stop yapping in this game, something that brought to mind that one Vine Sauce clip people got mad about for some reason. But I think it truly brings to light the main problem with this game. Take a listen for yourself, and ignore me missing my shots. I swear the guns feel weird too. Did you notice how flaccid everything sounded. Guns and explosions hardly feel like they're doing anything, visually and audibly. Meanwhile, here's what 3 seconds of a fight from Severed Steel sounds like. I love me my boomer shooters, but they need a bit more going on than Gunstoppable for me to really want to keep playing them. No, thank you. Duskfade! This is the game that I spent the second most time in during this stint. I believe this is the most finished product that I played, considering it's coming out the closest to this video's upload date. Duskfade is a platforming adventure game with hack-and-slash light elements with gorgeous visuals. Immediately, it rewards heading off the beaten path and checking spots that feel like secrets should be there. The movement was pretty fun to get down and definitely my favorite part of the game, especially because the combat's not super interesting. You don't have a whole lot of options, there's not a lot of enemy variety, and this game litters the halls with encounters. After a while, I started just running past the ones that weren't mandatory since they mostly just got you money. You need a lot for some of the upgrades, but if it meant mashing the only attack button, it didn't feel worth it. Still, it feels like a solid base for a game, and I'm sure people could get some enjoyment out of it if they can overlook some of those things. It faded from my wishlist personally, but it's really worth a try just for messing around with the game's movement and some secret hunting. Thankfully, the next game I'd heard about before stuck with me as a winning success. Order of the Sinking Star. This is the first game I stopped playing because I knew I'd eventually play more of it. Order of the Sinking Star is another puzzle game, closer to Void Stranger like I mentioned earlier. It feels like it has a bunch of interweaving character stories and some lore going on, but deep lore and data pages and demos never really meshed for me, so I didn't connect to too much of it. Even outside of that, this game has some good puzzles. It's a hard game to talk about since I feel like a lot of the footage is just, what if I, oh. No. But yeah, better than I expected going in, even if the characters are still a little yappy. Wishlist. Slayblade. I'm honestly surprised I didn't grab more roguelikes pulling out fun-looking demos, but Slayblade is definitely an interesting one. You're doing Beyblade tournaments, you know, those spinning tops that you saw in commercials all the time as a kid, to try and make money to qualify for the final tournament, spending every waking moment of a week training and building your kit to be stronger. Although, being honest, I hardly noticed anything different about my build from the beginning of my run to the end of one. I'm pretty sure the core combat system involved you getting more speed than your opponent before you rammed into each other, but I couldn't be 100% certain even immediately after a play session. It's not bad though, I think it just needs a bit more time in the oven to make things more interesting run to run. Give it a look and try a run, maybe it'll click more for you than it did for me. Speaking of clicking, Xenofeels. I, once again, thank you for clicking the thumbnail of this video. This game sucks. It tries to be a Papers, Please situation with you as a border agent letting people into a planet or shooting them with a shotgun if their documents don't match. Admittedly the best part of the game, but it's also slow with very little going on, not to mention it's weirdly gooner coded. Like, the end of a day has you going to your room, jerking your gun, and watching some supreme overlady posing in a very un-overlady-like position. Which, like, hey, power to you, ma'am, glory to fucking space or some shit wherever we are, but it feels off. Not to mention, the game itself doesn't even clearly tell you what you did wrong. I've looked through this person's information a dozen times and can't tell you what I did wrong, but I let them through and then lost, which means I have to replay the whole day, including 2 people that have whole tirades I need to listen to before they leave, and then yeah, this game just kinda sucks. Blacklisted and never looking at it again. Finally, the last game I played. A few of these games were stinkers, but at the very least I found a few things to look forward to and had the rest of my evening to try out this last game. So what did I think of Shroom and Gloom? Remember how I said Duskfade was the game I spent the second most time in? Well, here's the final boss of Shroom and Gloom, a dual deck builder roguelike with a gorgeous art style, innovative progression for a deck builder, and insane synergies you can pull off. I played this game for an hour and a half, accidentally finding a build that felt super satisfying to pull off and cut through encounter after encounter. I called this a dual deck builder, and by that I mean you have 2 decks, one for combat, one for camping. The only other game I've seen using something like this is Griftlands, which is also a fantastic game, highly recommended, and it's done so well here. You're always improving yourself, pushing yourself further to the point where even camping feels like a dangerous encounter built on risk and reward and figuring out just how much you can take before you can move on. Once this game releases, I can see myself putting dozens of runs through the ringer, even if I'll always remember being able to one-shot the boss with a literal toothpick. Wishlisted and highly recommended, like pretty much everything else I wishlisted here. Fun time all around. Even some of the stinkers were still worth taking a look at, not for that reason, and I hope you found something worth trying out yourself. Maybe I'll try this again next I got lost. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.